Ellen.
Hello and welcome to Opportunity Home San Antonio's regular board meeting. Please note this meeting will be recorded in its entirety. I will now conduct Commissioner roll call. Chair Gabriel Lopez.
Here.
Vice Chair Gilbert Casillas.
Here.
Barbara Unkama Burford.
Here.
Dalia Contreras. Estrella Garcia Diaz.
Here.
Leila Powell.
Here.
Janet Garcia.
Present.
Don Waldheim, Board of Commissioners Attorney.
Here.
Acting President and CEO Michael Reyes.
Here.
The time is 1:02 p.m. You may call the meeting to order.
Thank you. The Board of Commissioners or its committee may hold a closed meeting pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071-076 for consultation concerning attorney-client matters, real estate, litigation, personnel, and security matters. The Board or committee reserves the right to enter into closed meeting at any time during the course of the meeting. First up is citizens.
There are no citizens signed up to speak.
We have several minutes that need approval. The approval of the June 29th meeting minutes at the Castellana Homes, it's a special board meeting. We also had one at Snowden Apartments, same date, and at the Charles Andrews Building, same date. One on July 11th, which was a special board meeting.
So moved. Second.
First and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. We'll go into individual items. Item 4, consideration and approval regarding Resolution 6553, approving interim policy updates to the admissions and continued occupancy policy, ACOP. Christian Carrillo?
Can I ask a question just while you're getting started?
Yes.
The acronyms that we use, are those standard throughout HUDland? Like, does every PHA have an ACOP?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
That's correct. So we want to remove barriers to repayment in order to assist them with the extraordinary means of other rental balances. However, some of these policies also include to ensuring processes are in place to immediately address it so that we don't have a situation where we have some of these exorbitant rental balances in the future. Next slide, please. So I wanted to start by just talking about some of the general policies. Again, these are more specific to payment of rent rather than the repayment agreements themselves. So first, we're adding language up to take action, including repayment agreement, lease violations, and notices to vacate for families that accrue over 3 rental debt. Now, our procedures have steps in place to make sure that we're addressing rental payment or rather rental debt. But we're just putting it into policy specifically, um, uh, more effectively and on a timely basis so that we don't have the accrual of rent that we've seen in the past. I'm actually going to jump down to bullet number 3 for a moment because this language is also a general policy where we're actually going to be allowing for resident payments to first be hello. Okay. Okay, so moving over to the third bullet, this is again a general policy. We're adding update to allow for resident payments to first be applied to rent first before existing charges. So currently, the way that the system is set up, any payments that are made go to the oldest debt first, and that could be maintenance charges or other charges. But we're updating the system to allow for the payments to go to rent, allowing our households to be compliant with rent and addressing the charges separately. So this is a system update that's going to be made effective September 1st, and we're updating our ACOP, our policy, as well as the public housing lease. So we've already sent notices out to residents to let them know we need to give them a 30-day notice to comment about the lease changes. So that's been out. So far, I don't believe that we've received any comment back on that, but that is to be effective September 1st. So moving back to...
Before we move on from
Yes,
that
go
part,
ahead.
I just want to ask, I know we did receive a notice at our doors about this, and the only thing it mentioned that rent payments would like to first
Mhm.
before, I mean, it goes to rent, it wouldn't go to late fee, maintenance. There's some other things that you all are talking about change within the law going. Is every resident called in to sign these, that we understand, or that every resident understands these changes? Because like I said, you're talking about more things.
Yes, so some of these changes are going to be specific to a very specific population, and so we're going to be addressing those changes with that population specifically. And I'll go into that in the next slide. But as far as the other repayment agreement policy updates, those will be going out to our residents as well. We just wanted to make sure that the policy was approved first before we communicate those.
For review and update, sorry. Oh, I'm on. I know that we have regular review and update schedules for other policies. So will we be reviewing and updating the ACOP on a regular basis going forward, or is this something? Thank you.
Yes, we typically do that annual review process from, I would say, November, and we submit those changes to HUD in February. Okay, any other questions? Okay. So I'm sorry, if you can go back, Devlin. I just need to address the second bullet, which is specific to our repayment agreements. So language will be removed from the preventing us from offering a repayment agreement to families with balances of $25 or less. So obviously, this is a barrier for those households who have our negative renter area and, increase their opportunities for repayment.
I want to ask another question. We're behind on these months or that their rents being charged were correct. If late fees are correct, not be able to afford to pay.
Commissioner, I know that's something we've brought up with HUD before, and they see that any kind of debt is forgiveness. And so we brought this up during a local HUD administrator's visit to Opportunity Home, and that's something we'll continue to visit. Initially, we were told only debt couldn't be forgiven, but we need to revisit whether, get a legal opinion whether fees can be included in that.
Okay, so continuing the changes, these are specific. So this next change is going to be specific to those households with from March 2022. So we currently have a threshold at 3,000 and below for their rental balance. We're going to be updating that threshold to 6,000 to allow for a greater number of repayment agreements, since we do have more households above that 3,000 threshold. The next change addresses preventing us from offering a new repayment agreement to families that have completed one within the last 6 months, because of course we know that we've been reoffering repayment agreements, provide them that additional opportunity for repayment. So any questions about those policy updates before I get into procedure?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. The Olive Garden, sometimes the doors, right? And so, let's get are we social media? That way, there's no not knowing. I didn't.
Yes, absolutely. So we have discussed what the especially with these households, we want to be able to do that one-on-one connection, that we take into account what's their family going through, what rental balance they have, but also take into account reviewing the tenant double checking those charges right on their but making sure to ask, do you have a change of income that needs to be processed so that we can decrease rental amount, or what other resource. So we want to be able to do that when we roll out these policies.
I have one last question about the change of income. If there's a delay in getting that processed, do we have a process in place to make sure that residents aren't being assessed with fees or late charges when, in fact, they had submitted paperwork for recognition of reduction of income?
We actually have, it was a recent where if someone, because of life circumstances, they take a while to let us know that they've lost their job. When they do submit that change of income, that decrease, back to the first of the month following the date in which they actually lost those wages. So the prior policy was applying it the first of the following month after they reported it, but this is to allow for that to be backdated.
That's wonderful, thank you. And I'd like to make one more comment, which is to recognize the advocacy of Diego Bernal on this change and his continued action at the state level, but also here locally with us to make sure that we have policies that are most considerate of our residents. So, thank you, Diego Bernal.
And I'm sorry, Devlin, I have one more bullet point, sorry. So those were specific policy changes to our ACOG. Briefly talk about our procedure updates, and this is specific how we calculate the repayment agreement. So one is that we're actually going to be population of households with debt from that time frame of March 2020 to April 2024. Our normal repayment agreement has limited time limits, but we know that it may take some time for these households to catch up with their rent and also catch up with their balances. So we're extending those time limits as well as waiving the 10% down payment. So that would allow more to enter into these repayment agreements.
When
Any
they enter a payment
questions?
agreement, repayment agreement, is it calculated the back due rent or whatever is owed? How many months do they have, and is that amount added onto their existing monthly rent?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that question because we're also ensuring the rent that they're paying and the amount that they're repaying doesn't go over 40% of their monthly adjusted income. So we want to, so it's three different things: the time limit, the actual amount that they owe, and then that 40% rule, so that we can ensure that it is feasible for them to be paying into that repayment agreement in addition to their rent.
I'd like to make a recommendation that staff, whenever there's, stay on top of it, because sometimes and they just pay the rent and then they start following, or they default on their repayment, cause problems. So if for some reason something happens, staff, stay on top of these. Give them a note. They're aware of, especially.
Yes,
Just a
absolutely.
recommendation.
Thank you.
To better understand the repayment terms, could you give me an example of an average repayment agreement and how long those repayment agreements are set for as far as timeframes?
I could send a breakdown of what that looks like after.
I'm just trying
yeah.
to understand the time limits and the increases so that I can kind of, like I said, better understand what those repayment agreements look like and what our residents are facing when they are having these conversations with regard to. I'd appreciate that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
I have a question. Is in doing the outreach, will there be any efforts to connect residents with resources that can help them with budgeting and getting on track with making the repayments?
Yes, absolutely. We want to be able to provide some of the resources directly connected with our city. And I know we have some other strategies that we're going to be on in this board meeting, and maybe that.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you.
With these changes that are being proposed, we do need
So moved.
we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries. Item number 5, consideration and approval regarding Resolution 6555, authorizing the acting president and CEO the authority to award previously approved city council and congressional project-funded related contracts in excess of $250,000. Hello, Director of Procurement.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here today to discuss Resolution 65, which grants our acting president and CEO the authority to award city-related contracts surpassing his currently Opportunity Homes procurement policy states that the board to approve all contracts and all expenditures in excess of the approval, delegated authority, which is the 200. Due to the project initiation time requirements imposed on us by the grantors of funds, we are requesting the approval for the Board of Commissioners to delegate the authority to approve procurements exceeding $200,000 for all city bond and congressional earmark procurements, to include executing and all necessary contracts, purchasing of goods and services, and taking any and all other actions on the organization where the cost exceeds the acting president's and CEO's. As you all might know, Opportunity Home is authorized by Texas 0151 to delegate a power or duty to the agent. In the course of awarding these contracts, procurement will projects that will be based on competitive bid or proposal process are in accordance with the HUD policies and also Chapter 252 of the. This procurement methods may include cooperative purchasing and any other to include emergency purchases as well, and also piggybacking off of interlocal agreements with public housing agents. Or any currently related contracts. Some of the projects that we see forthcoming is such as replacement of deteriorated trim boards, ceiling replacement on exterior walls, and repaint exterior finishes. We also see replacement of sidewalks and concrete pavement, which are already covered in some of our. This time, more than glad.
Commissioners, the intent on this one, definitely, just to speed the process. We have a lot of awarded to this organization previously, so the intent is to let's push that through now, rather than them having to bring it each. They can make the decision move forward, and it is specific to those that were previously awarded. So it's already here. This is not a blanket authorization. Specific to. And they're still going to be following the existing policy.
Can I just ask a question
Yes, ma'am.
regarding process? So, for example, I'm understanding that if there are city bond funds that are awarded for a project, you're saying to go ahead and implement after the city's awarded, that we would waive the requirement for that to come back to the commissioner to execute the project for which funding's already been awarded, correct?
So what we're asking is just for expedite the approval. Extra solicitation process and part of the. Get it to ratification.
If we were going to apply for another congressional earmark, would that come to the commissioners for review before application?
That would be.
All these projects have. So what happened? Consideration. So we're trying.
I understand that, and the only thing I wanted clarification on was that there is still a step in the process, at least one step in the process, when the commissioners would see the project and get a sense of the project, and that then you've also put on the table that there would be reporting back as projects are moving forward. So, thank you.
Some of the backstory on this for Commissioner Burford is some of these monies were awarded, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, 2 years, and with the intent that we as an organization would have moved forward on some of these, and it's just because of attrition or otherwise, we're now getting to them. Now that we're getting to them, rather than creating now that they're, his department would go out and put out for back to us, all it would do is prolong. Oh, it's already been approved. We know what it's specific for. We're just allowing him the authority to sign, as long as the process is.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just add that the city did inform me that we're at risk of losing this money if we don't act quickly. So there's a very tight timeline here, so we need to move fast.
Not just the city, it won't be long before our congressional friends ask us. They've been really about funding, so utilizing it.
In line with what Commissioner Howell was saying, I would like, it's okay that things have been approved, but maybe once they.
So with that, if there are no other questions, I'll accept a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution carries. Item number 6, Resolution 6556, approving Opportunity Home San Antonio and/or its affiliated entity to enter into negotiated settlement for delay claims for Snowden Road construction project. Miranda Castro, Chief Asset Manager. Would that also be the same for the following items? 6, 7, and 8.
Number 8 is just, I'd like to go into closed session.
Okay.
While we're still in open session, Chair, can we recognize the new status or role that our Chief Asset Officer has? I think it's exciting.
Sure.
Here,
You got
so-
this. You got the mic.
That's all I have to say.
Okay, so
Congratulations.
for those that
Commissioner
are not
Powell.
aware,
I realize, I'm sorry, I probably stole the
Miranda
CEO's
has
thunder.
been
but-
elevated to our Chief Asset Management Officer. Is that all right?
You
Yes.
did.
Okay.
And Miranda brings a wealth of experience. She's as smart as it gets and has lived experience as well. So we're very fortunate to have her on the executive team.
Thank you.
Welcome. Hey, didn't mean to steal your thunder. I know you got it later.
I'll say $5 later.
What's that?
I'll give her $5 later.
I know, right, okay.
Okay, so we will table items 6, 7, 8 to closed session. And then item number 9, consideration and approval regarding Resolution 6548, authorizing the sale by Opportunity Home of a vacant lot located at 4262 West Cesar Chavez Avenue, San Antonio, at a purchase price of $30,000. The expenditure of unrestricted funds, including but not limited to a portion of the proceeds of the sale, and all other actions necessary to effect the sale, and other matters in connection therewith. Miranda.
So this is a lot that we acquired for the Marisol West Side Reinvestment. It was part of the master plan back in 2000. So this lot has been deemed not usable. We're not going to use it for further development, and we have no need for it at this point. We're only having just costs to keep, the landscaping down. And so it's my recommendation, and I had previously brought this to the board to request that this, along with 3 other parcels, be listed for sale. So we listed those 4 parcels with our agent on April 19th. We had a price reduction. So this particular property was listed for $59,000. We did do a price reduction of $5,500 on May 22nd. So we have an offer now currently that we received on July 18th. The buyer would like to close next week on the 12th. And so the offer that we have received on the table is $30,000 at this time. And I understand that that is less than what we had hoped for and also less than what Bexar County has it as raised. And so I just wanted to answer those. There were questions on that. I would like to say, though, that the buyer does have intentions of wanting to develop this as a affordable housing duplex. So that is in line with our.
With regard to those intents, are there covenants on the property at?
There are no covenants that run with the land, but it is, they have a stated intent to develop it as affordable housing.
Have we in the past ever sold any of our portfolio, not the multifamily, but the single-family properties with covenants that require them to be used as affordable housing?
Not that I am specifically aware of, but I believe that our single-family homes that we're selling do have covenants that go with them, if I'm not mistaken, but I can't speak off my.
With no other questions, I'll take a motion on item number 9.
So moved.
We have a first to a second.
Second.
First and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 6548.
Thank you.
Item number 10, consideration approval regarding Resolution 6551, authorizing the award of a contract for automatic gate maintenance, repairs, and installation to Gate Services and Supply LLC for an annual cumulative amount not to exceed $1 million for a period of 1 year with the option to renew up to 4 additional one-year terms. George Ayala, Director.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. Today, we're asking for your approval in Resolution 6551, authorizing the contract for automatic gates, repairs and installation to Gate Services Supply LLC for an annual committed amount not to exceed $1 million. The purpose of this award, as you all might know, Opportunity Home currently has automatic gates across several communities featuring a range of operating systems, such as a single and dual gates, which are powered by electricity, operated on chains, cables, rollers, and use swinging or siding mechanisms. The organization is requiring a service provider who can offer comprehensive maintenance services, including annual and semi-annual or quarterly preventive maintenance, repairs, installations, as well as full-service solutions for remote and keypad vehicle and pedestrian access gates. With regards to the solicitation process, this solicitation was posted on several websites. We did receive, after the conclusion of the solicitation period, we did receive one response back. This solicitation was evaluated on purchase price, reputation of the vendor and his goods or services, quality of goods and services, including past performance, extent to which the goods and services meet Opportunity Homes' needs, the total long-term cost, and any other relevant factors in the solicitation. At this time, staff is recommending a contract to be awarded to Gate Services and Supply. Their cost is proven to be deemed both fair and reasonable.
This is the same company that had the contract before.
It's the same company that had the previous contract. So they've had several different contracts with us in the past. Like I said, we did try to reach out to other companies and see if we can attract them to work for us. Fortunately, after the 24 days, we weren't able to get any more. But this particular vendor was evaluated based on past performances. We have performance records that we ask our staff to submit to us in case they're having any. So because of that, we were able to recommend a particular vendor.
No other questions? Take a motion on item number 10.
So moved.
We have a first, we have a second. And a second, all in favor? Good? Good, okay. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. You're good, George. Item number 11. Discussion and possible action regarding our 5 priorities and other related topics. Going first.
It'll be Joanna providing the security update. And I should also introduce Joanna as our new Chief Information Officer, first time ever that this organization is putting technology at the executive table to make changes that will take this organization forward. So congratulations also to Joanna.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. I'm just really excited about it, and I'm so happy to be working with Michael. Organization to the next level when it comes to technology. Just a note, a quick note, since I'm the CIO now, this is a new AV system, system that we
Great day
just
to
put
get started,
in.
by the way.
So if you see my team and me bouncing up like popcorn, that's why. But we're gonna get it perfected, I promise. You guys all sound good, by the way. We can hear all of you very well. And we do hope to bring more technology from this new system, but we're taking it one phase at a time. So today I'm going to talk to you about the HUD grant. Can I go to that slide? All right. So on June 20th, HUD announced in a press release that it will award $10 million to 65 public housing agencies in 32 states to make much-needed capital improvements that will ensure safety and security for the residents. On June 25th, Opportunity Home was chosen as one of those housing authorities for the FY24 Emergency Safety and Security Grant in the award of $117,256. Our funds, the funds that will be applied to three actually public housing properties, Mission Park and Cheryl West. They will get the implementation of cameras and intrusion protection, and Westway will get some much needed lighting in that area. So we do hope to kick off that work, and we of course will meet as needed to use those funds. And now I'm going to introduce Domingo. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
What are the deadlines? How quickly do you have to implement?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's usually within a year that we have to expend the funds.
Let's not take that.
Oh, no, we won't.
If
No,
possible, okay.
no, sir, we won't. Actually, like I said, we plan to kick it off right after this announcement so that we can go ahead and get everything done. But because of the three properties, I do not think it's going to take very long at all.
I do want to say that the lighting y'all are putting in the parking lots and stuff, I don't know if it's too small or three small poles in our park. It is really. It helps with.
Yes, agreed. Domingo and his team really do a good job in going out there and doing the surveys, and I think Construction Services also works toward making sure that is
You're
in
doing
there.
that to all the property. Get that done.
That's definitely the goal. And now I'm going to introduce Domingo. He's going to come in, our security director, and he's going to talk to you about the SAPD Crime Reduction Plan and Rosemont Initiative.
While Domingo comes to the podium, just a reminder, we're being notified that our online audience, they're having difficulty hearing the commissioners. So if you can speak as close to the microphone as possible, that would be great.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. On December the 5th of 2023, the City of San Antonio invited us to participate with the UTSA SAPD study. I'm happy to say that a lot of the research that we do here already gave us an opportunity to jump in there. Specifically, Commissioner Powell through LISC, thank you so much. Her connections with a national organization, that's a goldmine of information. Crime prevention through environmental design has been around for many years, but we're in the third generation of that. So a lot of what we do here works hand in glove with what SAPD was doing. SAPD recognized that they wanted to partner with an organization that would be very cooperative and responsive. We were selected, so we're honored to sit at the table with them. What's important about phase number one, you might remember the media covered it a lot, where SAPD was parking patrol cars at various locations. Those were identified as hotspots. And at those locations, basically it was high profile. The officers would sit in a patrol car and the lights, the emergency lights were activated. And they were tracking those statistics. From there, they concluded the top locations, which is Rosemont at Highland Park. That represents phase number 2. Problem-oriented place-based policing has also been around. A lot of that has to do, once again, LISC is doing the kind of research that we're doing here. What this requires, though, is that a lot of the communities recognize that this is an ecosystem, not just police or security. This requires an entire community to work in cohesion. You might have heard the term that we use before, which is social cohesion. That's a fancy word that's used on a national level, but all that means is the community is connected, so connected that they actually have a voice to be able to exemplify to the police department, to security, what it is that concerns them and what they need. Part of phase number 2 also involves a survey. The City of San Antonio shared the survey with us, and we made some minor adjustments, and the results are pending. What's also important about phase number 2 is that it involves some of the multidimensional teams, which is code enforcement, we ask that public call 311. The reason that's so important is that city is tracking all of the calls to code enforcement. That includes animal control, the homeless outreach organizations, various other service providers. So this is a holistic approach. But now that we have a seat at the table with the city, we have a lot more resources. And phase number 3 is really not on the table yet. It's still under consideration, but we'll get to that point. It's going to be a focused deterrence. I'll open this up for any questions that the commissioners may.
I would like to say or recommend some of our residents. There's such a, like I just learned about it. Could share it to our residents publicly. There is a place where you can report code enforcement. That way they can calls constantly. Probably. And so I don't know as opportunity link or that residents here aware that these share this.
Thank you for your comment. The city's asking that we utilize 311 because that's what the tracking. So we can work with public affairs to make sure we publicize 311. Thank you.
Domingo, does Texas Lawman still have that quick response team that will go to hotspots or to calls that happen? I know a lot of times they get there faster than SAPD does, and usually they'll call SAPD, get there a lot quicker. Is that still happening?
Thank you for your question. Yes, sir, Commissioner. That's actually part of our SAFE program. The city has the SAPD SAFE officers. We have our own SAFE officers, which is part of our interlocal agreement with SAPD. But that is Monday through Friday, the business hours. The SAFE officers, Public Housing and Beacon, are tasked with problem solving. So all of the information that we harvest over the night patrol, which is what Texas Lawman conducts, and all the information that we receive from management or maintenance or even anonymous information is processed through what we call incident management, and that's relayed back to the SAFE officers. So they actually go to the properties and work with the managers hand in glove to make sure that those are addressed. And you're correct, many times because of a call volume that SAPD has, the SAFE officers get there first. So thank you for your.
I just want to recognize your comments about LISC. Thank you. We've had a national program in, as you said, third generation CEPTED for a number of years, and we're really excited about doing more work in San Antonio and have worked here in the past, and do have a 2-hour orientation call that's available to anyone who would like to learn more about this approach, this community-based. It's not really an option to policing, it's an asset or an addition to the policing approach to address criminal activity. So we'll be doing that program on the 23rd, August 23rd, and I hope you're registered for it.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, thank you.
I have a question, and really it's more curiosity. How invested or knowledgeable are the residents at Rosemont with regard to this initiative? And is there training available for them to understand how this works and what the benefits are for utilizing these types of tactics and processes?
Thank you for the question. Yes, ma'am. That's actually part of the survey. Is the city of San Antonio working in concert with us, want to know what their specific needs are, what their concerns are. And we've had multiple safety socials, which is basically our security department, the SAFE officers, working and having a Q&A with the residents. The thing about Rosemont is that historically, over the course of time, we have issues that we identified through what we were just talking about, the SAFE officers, city, and what we're able to do is address those. Sometimes it's an adverse action, individuals who refuse to comply with the lease. Other times it's more a question of holding someone accountable that maybe they think nobody's watching. But through the course of time, the crime stats go up and then they come down. But what the city is looking at is the course of the last 2 years. So the citizens there, the residents have been very much involved, but also the entire community, which is surrounding Rosemont. I've looked at some crime stats, basically that identifies the most violent crimes in the immediate area. And what I'm looking at are consent circles, 1 mile radius. And there are a lot of incidents that take place outside of the property that go into our property. So I will say this much. The number one problem is trespass. So we have a trespass agreement program working with the city of San. It's going to be very, very useful. And the citizens or the residents as well are very well informed about that.
But it's hard to uphold that trespassing issue when residents are bringing a lot of those.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the comment. That's actually why we have the rapid response team. Many residents at times have a tendency to believe nobody's watching. So the managers working in concert with security obtained 2 data streams, and I'll explain both of them. Number one is anecdotal. Fancy word to say just information that's being shared between residents, maintenance staff especially, managers. And we track those down with empirical evidence. Fancy word to say these are the crime stats. So we identify the top 10 addresses. In this case, it was Rosemont, the top 10 addresses. In this case, it's specific units. Those are the ones that are called in by management, and we have a compliance agreement discussion as it relates to the lease. Many times, people just need to know that someone is watching, and I love the way the chairman of the board referenced this months ago, symbiotic relation. But when they don't comply with the lease, that's when you first action. That's when we see the comment commission.
It's a thankless job. We appreciate what your teams are doing. So
Thank you, sir.
any other concerns, make sure you're bringing them to us as well. Things that we can. So no other comments? Okay. Who's next up on this?
We have Miranda, who's going to discuss the rent balances at Beacon. So here, if not, oh, Miranda's there. And then we'll go to public housing after Beacon.
Balances. So with my new, can you hear me now? That's, okay, that's better. All right, I'll stand here. With my new promotion, I now oversee Beacon as well. And so I'm here to talk about our rent balances. So we are making some changes. They are very slow, but we are seeing some good effort. And so this is sort of a breakdown of what we had as far as the July 17th and then where we were at as this is just a picture in time of July 29th. And so we do have good news, less people in eviction status, as well as we have seen people that have actually moved out, which is good. We are having an active rental repayment agreements of 143 families. And then we have seen a large increase in the balances paid in full from 69 up to 80, so that's good. We do have some increases in the pending notice to vacate. Unfortunately, we are seeing tenants that have moved in and unfortunately have just not done what they needed to do to be successful in housing, which is pay your rent. And so we are seeing an uptick in that, which is unfortunate. So we are looking at trying to make some movement on allowing people that are maybe not doing their part to move along and getting residents that really want to be in housing and can do the things. So is there any questions on that?
Any other questions?
The people that live in Beacon, are they on vouchers? Or it just figured it like the same
It's
thing as
a
public housing?
mixture. It's not public housing in that not all of the units have a subsidy component.
But-
So there is a general consensus of sort of all programs. I want to say we manage 7 different affordability programs at Beacon. 9, thank you. Normelia is really the brains of the operation with that part. So we manage 9 programs at Beacon. And so we do have some units that do have income-based subsidy, but not all of them, no.
So if someone's evicted or, and they have a voucher, do they lose their voucher or they can take it with them and move
They
somewhere
would
else?
unfortunately lose their voucher, which is why we're trying to get people on a payment plan a repayment agreement before that happens because we don't want to see them lose their voucher. You know, we're in the business of housing and we want to keep people housed.
You good? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is public housing, correct?
Public housing. And that's, I believe, Kristen and Ruth, or?
I first wanted to talk a little bit about the data because previously we had presented some data that had a different population. It was specifically looking at those that had been served notices to vacates for in May and May and April of this year. But we're now really focusing on these families with balances prior to June 30th and defining these as our pandemic era households that we're going to be providing some of the extended time limits for repayment agreements. So it is a different subset that, or data set that you're looking at than last time. But so I just wanted to kind of clarify that. We have, out of this grouping, about 732 households with rental balances. And you can see here that we have 94 households that are over 6,000 with that total outstanding rent, which is pretty large in comparison to the others. We have 3,000 to 6,000 that are 138 households. And we wanted to separate that out because these are the families that will benefit from that threshold of the repayment agreement moving up to 6,000 so that they can now enter into a repayment agreement. And we have 501 to 3,000. So for that rental balance, we have 318 households. You can see that's the largest number of households there. And then $1 to 500 at 182. So any questions about this data?
No, but I appreciate the policy suggestion update on the ACOP, specific to that, families that it help. You know, ultimately, we want to make sure that we're keeping an eye on it for the betterment of the organization, as well as the social responsibility that we have to our residents that are paying. But we know that y'all are trying. Recognize it. Anything that we can do to help mitigate that, let us know. Otherwise, we still have to move forward with the expectations that the rest of the policies are.
And I truly appreciate the way you're breaking down these, letting us see the difference.
Of course.
Chairman, I have one question. In the past, we talked about an emergency fund or a resident assistance fund, and I know that HUD doesn't allow us to forgive, but there'd been some discussion about whether there were sources from private donors or other types of funding that could be used in emergency situations. I'm noting that this $100 to $500 balance that, admittedly inexact, but the average there is about $200. So do we have a source of funds that we can use if, you know, we saw prior that there had been some folks who had a $17 balance, or is there a way we can address those without having to go through the formal process?
Commissioner, I'll take that question. There's two answers to that question. One is NHSD is helping us with these arrears. There's about 200 applications that they've received since April. They were waiting for approval of this board, which now they have to move forward with the revised policy. So many of these that you mentioned may be of those 200 that are impacted. Second, the new Opportunity Home Emergency Assistance, Rental Assistance Program is officially in effect as of August 1st. But that's for moving forward. That's for critical emergency needs that our families are facing, either a medical emergency or a death in the family. But that's as of August 1st and moving forward. These folks are, we call pandemic era arrears, so from March 2020 to June 30th of this year. So it's a very specific group of folks. So the rental assistance program would not apply to these folks.
Follow-up to that is one of the, not just through our city partnerships, which, the mayor's office as well as NHSD has tasked us with figuring out different ways. Congressionally, they've looked for options. Heard from Congressman Casar's office specifically. because his district is proportionally impacted. So,
And I know that the city is looking at putting together a legislative agenda at the state and federal level.
Probably include
And to
that.
make, it would be great if our concerns were reflected and if we could get some support to address some of these issues from a regulatory perspective at the federal level.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just add, we want to emphasize that there is a shared responsibility with our residents. Even though some of these numbers are low, 500, some of the rent payments are $50, so they may be 3 to 5 years behind. They haven't made $1 payments. So we need to emphasize that the families residing in our households do have a responsibility to pay rent even if it's $50. And so while the numbers may seem small here in the field, that's 3 to 5 years worth of rent. So we just want to emphasize that moving forward, we have a responsibility, our households have a responsibility to pay as well.
excellent, excellent.
Can I just back up what the CEO said? I know this is a discussion we've had in the past, but since security and creating a sense of community at our properties is so important, we hear that from the residents consistently as the top concern. It does seem to me that that sense of responsibility and that management being in a position of authority to be able to say you've entered into a lease, these are your obligations, these are our obligations, that's really critical to establishing that sense of mutuality. And then I'm glad to see that we're taking very seriously the obligation to improve security overall and to be responsive to residents so that we're responsible to them and they're responsible to their neighbors as well. So thank you very much for noting that.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We are excited to announce our public housing rent collection strategies. We have 3 of them that we are proposing. One of them is surrounding a repayment agreement policy that we have looked at it with a lens of it being more resident-friendly and presenting easier options for the households with rental arrears during the pandemic era. These 3 benefits that we're proposing is extending the repayment agreement timelines extensively, increasing the repayment agreements from 3,000 to 6,000 to allow more residents to be eligible to apply for repayment agreements. And then if a resident has entered into one and they have defaulted, to allow another good faith opportunity to enter into another repayment agreement. Our second strategy is what we call rent first payment processing that was mentioned a little bit earlier. We are currently working with our Emphasis software company to set up the payment system to allow automatically apply payments to rent rather than the oldest charges or any other charges that are listed on the ledger. So the focus will be on paying rent first. Our third initiative is the collaboration with NHSD to establish strategies for repossession of the units without impacting the future rental history with the eviction records for our residents. So that is twofold. It requires referrals to NHSD for the relocation assistance, and it also introduces the Public Housing Cash for Keys program. Now, NHSD has committed to assist our residents on a referral basis with relocation to include moving, the rental of a U-Haul truck, storage, and it's not limited to security deposit for for their new home. Cash for Keys is being proposed because we still want to protect our residents and give them the 11th hour type of Hail Mary action to help them. Cash for Keys is an incentive for residents to avoid an eviction being filed and running or incurring legal fees and court costs. It protects their rental history as well. This is a chance for a new start. It also provides a safe and private relocation with NHSD and avoids property damage. The repayment agreement is still the first option for all residents that have rent in arrears that are under $6,000 to keep them housed. These strategies are aimed at keeping our residents housed. These 3 strategies incentivizes residents not to have an eviction on file, and those eligible for a repayment agreement to enter into one at the property.
But
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to add that these strategies are meant to really protect families and our residents. We don't want anyone to have an eviction record on their credit report. It will affect their ability to rent in the future. And so at the same time, we're trying to get repossession of our unit to offer it to a family on our wait list who are willing to pay rent and willing to be good tenants. And so again, to reiterate what our Director of Public Housing said, our goal as housers, to reaffirm our goal as housers, is to keep folks housed, and that is through a repayment agreement. And if families choose not to proceed with a repayment agreement, the normal process would be through an eviction, but we're trying to avoid that. So cash for keys, and I'll give credit to our Chief Asset Management Officer who came up with the idea, is a way to go around that. It protects the tenant from getting an eviction on their record, and it protects the financial stability of this organization. We can get our possession of our unit back. So it's a compassionate way forward, and that's what we like to proceed. So this is not a item for action for the board. This is just a heads up. This is what we're going to proceed, but we're happy to take your feedback or guidance as we proceed with these three strategies.
awesome. I mean, that's exactly the type of innovative items that we were looking for. Again, we were scrambling. We needed those ideas to come this way, and that's exactly what we were looking for. Something that will be, with the filter of compassion, but still keeping an eye on what our responsibility, our fiduciary responsibilities are, not just to the organization and the employees, but to the families that we're also serving. Thank you.
Question. Out in the field, how are the managers and the CSSs having a difficult time talking with residents about these repayment agreements, or getting in touch with them to be able to do this, or is it being embraced by residents with the staff?
I believe that it is being embraced. We take advantage of different avenues of communication to communicate with our residents, whether it's going in person and knocking on the door and offering them a repayment agreement, to actually sending them an email, encouraging them to come into the office, phone calls that we may make to them. We'll work around their schedule. I know that some of the properties have even come in on the weekends to accommodate the residents, should they be working during the week or only available on the weekends. So they are making their best faith effort. We actually are also, we have our CDI department that is also doing outreach to our residents. And then we're looking forward to our NHSD on that referral, that they'll be reaching out to them as well. And the good news is that they are actively working on those applications that were already submitted during the month of May.
So have y'all been able to contact most of the residents that have been in arrears?
From what I understand, and the communication, the feedback, there has been numerous attempts on behalf of the staff to reach out to the residents. The majority of residents we have been able to be in contact with, and they have been receptive. That's a win for both of us. But unfortunately, there are a fraction and a percentage of those residents that have not responded or been active to reach out or attend the appointments that have been made for them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add, I didn't properly introduce Ruth Bautista. She's our new Director of Public Housing. She previously served as our Assistant Director of Public Housing. As I've mentioned to staff over the last few weeks, that anyone really could dive in deep and learn HUD policy and procedure, but you can't learn empathy. And Ruth brings empathy to our families and residents, and so it's a valuable asset, and she's a valuable team member of our senior team now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What will we have next?
Richard is up next with the wait list data.
Good afternoon. This is a snapshot, our latest snapshot of our wait list numbers, a very high level as of July 1. The number of unique households is 115,816. That's up about 500 households from the June 1 number. And the number of applications were at 305,595. That's down about 2,400 applications. So what we're seeing is, over the last month, a smaller average number of applications per household, so a little over 2.5. And that's what we have for today. We look forward to coming back in September with a deeper dive and with some of the longer-term trends and breaking this out into all, some of the list detail to provide for you as well. But happy to take any questions at this time.
Yeah, 500 increase from June till now. What, is that slowing? Is that the same amount? Is that typical? It's going to fluctuate up, down, up?
We don't know yet. I
Okay.
think and in September, we should be able to zoom out and get a bigger sense of the trends. The last time we had this conversation and looked at the bigger picture, the graph was unusual, right? It was pretty much a hockey type shape, not the puck, but the other thing.
The other.
So we're in uncharted territory, and so I think it's hard to say that anything is usual or unusual. I think we had gotten to a peak of about 1,000 new households, unique households per month, and so 500 would be a decrease of that. Whether that's permanent or whether that's just a blip remains to be seen.
I want to make a comment that doesn't have anything to do with you, but kind of affects the wait list. I did ask at the last meeting in June for a list of how many public housing vacancies we have and how long they've been sitting on the vacant list, and also for Beacon. And I don't see agenda that or anywhere on here that is coming or being addressed. I did ask for that over a month ago. Still asking. By our next.
Commissioner, we'll get that to you by the end of this week.
I had a question. So, how are we keeping in touch with these households? Like, unfortunately, way, or they're no longer housing, or they're planning. It applied 3 or 5 years ago. It's now no longer the same range, and so it's opportunity calling basis with the individuals. Like, how are we weeding out that? Because maybe we have different numbers, right?
Yeah, I'll let Kristen speak to the details of it. In general, we do reach out and try to maintain the most up-to-date contact information we can. Kristen.
And just to clarify that, my role is over the wait list as well as our policy and data team. So to answer your question, we do notices of continued interest. That's what we call it. Just mailing those out, but also where we've actually implemented other communication methods through text message, through email, so that we can ensure that we get through to those individuals, just to ask them if they're still interested. If they've already found housing, then we can remove them from the wait list and decrease these numbers and allow that place to be given to someone who still is in need of housing. So that's how we keep in touch with those individuals.
How long do they have to touch back? What's the paper? Like, say they don't get the letter or whatever, like, for them to be.
Sure, we give 10 business days, but we allow a grace period. And oftentimes, if they miss that deadline, then if they just provide us with supporting documentation, perhaps they were out of the country or they're hospitalized or things came up. If they provide us that documentation, then we reinstate them onto the wait list. Yes.
A question about the requirements. Is there a HUD requirement that we mail documents or that we have a physical document, or do we have leeway regarding the contacts via email and text?
We have leeway. So I know that we've discussed in the past moving to just doing updates via our portal, but we know that there's a lot of our applicants that aren't tech savvy, that don't have access to computers or Wi-Fi. And so we still go via mail, but we're also, that's why we're adding on those other avenues for those who perhaps don't have a permanent address. Perhaps they're living in shelter like Haven for Hope or permanent supportive housing, so that we can better reach them through those other methods.
That was what my question was about. Thank you.
Are you measuring, or what methodology are you utilizing to make sure that it's effective? Measuring that type of response time or response to your outreach?
Not specifically, but I know that we implemented these methods, I want to say June of last year. And so we do have a plan to actually conduct a full data review to see if the number of households that have gotten back to us has increased. It's because we did a data review at that time and found, there was a disproportionate amount of, percentage of households who were able to get back to us. We don't know the reason why, right? We can only assume why that is, but we implemented some of these strategies, like the additional communication methods. We created a video on our website that actually explains the wait list, some additional strategies that way so that we can hopefully improve. And we're going to be doing another data review. I can't say when exactly, but I'm sure that would be something that we could bring to the board.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful to make sure that at least the efforts that you're making are acting. The other part of that is with regards to the wait. Are we, and I think we've asked this before, but are we able to track who's on the wait list? Seniors, families, public housing, Beacon voucher type? Can we break it down that far?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Because that would be helpful for us too, just to see what's the makeup of this.
yes, absolutely. And the August Ops meeting will actually have our operations report that breaks down the waiting list that way for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, wanted to talk briefly about our communication strategy. I think we have a slide here just to quickly emphasize that we've been meeting with all of our partners across different strata, from federal, state, local, HUD officials, and community advocates, just to reaffirm that this organization is going back to basics. It's going back to housing, and it's going back to business. And we want to emphasize that message across. Whenever there's a transition occurring, there's always concern about whether things will fall through the cracks or things will move forward. So we want to emphasize across the board to all of our partners that we're here, we're moving forward, and we have a great team in place to make things happen and to make sure that we move the housing agenda forward and we emphasize affordability in our city. So just a lot lists here, but just to emphasize that there's a lot of communication happening across the board.
Great, good to hear.
And our last slide is Diana, our new Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, will provide a little bit about our vouchers.
Good afternoon.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So this is just a brief update about our HCV utilization, our goal, right? So as you know, we first brought our budget. We talked about sort of cutting our goal down to 10,800 unit monthly. We tend to use acronyms, UMLs, unit monthly. So that target would have covered sort of our old usage of MTW funds for public housing. And we know that we want to, reduce that number, right? Made the effort. So we moved on to our planned number, right, of 11,100, which would get us there. So in between, though, today, we are operating at 11,300, and that would give us enough to cover just a portion of even the reduced public housing loss, including resident services and Section 8 needs. So we thought the better balance was to go with 11,100, which would give us an excess of about $19 million, and that would cover the reduced public housing loss of 14.5 million, 2.5 million for resident services through CDI, and $1.3 million for the Section 8 administrative loss. And that gets us to about 18.5 million, and it gives you a few $100,000 for, some unplanned, possibly capital types of uses for public housing. We're hearing some feedback from managers and maintenance folks that we do need some replacement of the fleet. There are some significant number of fleet vehicles that are in 15, even 20 years. So we'll be bringing back a more comprehensive plan, but I wanted you to know that we have sort of settled on that 11,100, but with the caveat that we won't actually get there because the reduction in the number of unit months leased tends to move very, very slowly. It's like righting a ship, right? So we are currently over 11,300. So the projection to get down to 11,100, that date is not until around December of 2025. So it'll take a little while to get there. But that's good news, right? Because then people stay housed.
Stay
right?
housed.
Right.
May I ask some questions for clarification? So what I understand, just to be clear, is that because of the budget circumstances and the challenges that lots of multifamily owners, operators were facing, but some particular circumstances for PHAs, given reduction in HUD funding, that we had a significant gap in where we'd like to be, and that one way of addressing that gap was to reduce the number of vouchers that we were going to be able to make available. And what you're letting us know is that we're still going to have to do reduction, but it's not going to be as significant as we had originally projected. And I know I've heard from the CEO that we are taking some other cost-saving measures internally, because clearly, our goal is to provide as much housing for as many people as possible, and that's what we're working towards. So in the future, do we still have the ability, if we can figure out other sources of funding and right-size other programs, and I know that won't be easy, but we can still move back towards that higher level if possible?
Yes, I'm continuing to work with all the department heads, but Ruth and I have probably come the farthest, right? And we've already, I believe, cut to the 14.5 million, and I think we have some other opportunities there as well. The other piece of it, that drove the number down was also the per unit cost directly in Section 8, right? I mean, those increases were significant over the past 2 fiscal years. I mean, the upside of that is, people are able to use their vouchers more readily, right? They can shop at more apartment complexes and they can get housed. But that did create a huge use of this money as well, right? So those increases were, I think you can remember, about 17% last year, and there's another 11% this year. And 7 months into the funding year, those are calendar year funded, although we are fiscal year, those are calendar year funded. 7 months into the year, we are still on track for an 11% increase for the calendar year funding of 24. So they're still going up every day.
Can I ask one more question that's not directly related to that, but it's kind of a rabbit hole from there? So we've seen those significant increases. Are those cost increases reflective of an overall increase in the market, or did we see, as those costs went up, did we see a decrease in or an increase in the ability of voucher holders to find a unit? So paying more, did that allow us to get more folks more easily into units, or did it just allow us to keep pace with where we were before?
Well, both, because those folks that were sort of struggling to find housing, right? There were more landlords interested in these types of rents, but it also drove up rent across the board, because anytime you raise your payment standards, a landlord doesn't have to wait until a recertification to come and ask for an increase in rent, right? They can come right away. Obviously, some of them are waiting because this is, a full year after the last increase was requested, and we're still seeing sort of these lagging increases in the per unit cost every single month. We're seeing about a 1% increase every single month, 8.89%. And we project that through at least the end of the fiscal year.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, item number 12. Dan? Prepared for that? Kind of throwing you in.
Here, the board is expected to elect officer for the board. One would be chair and the other would be vice chair. So at this time, the appropriate board take nominations. Nominations chair have been completed. The board should vote on that. Follow vice chair. So the take nomination.
To clarify, the nominating period is just at this meeting. It's not, doesn't extend beyond the meeting today. I nominate Gabe Lopez for chair.
I'll second that nomination.
There are no further nominations. The board should now vote on.
Signify by aye.
Yes.
Aye.
So, chair has been elected, and now for the vice chair.
I'll nominate the current vice chair, Gilbert Casillas, for the to remain in position.
Nominations. So now the board needs to vote on.
All in favor?
I'll vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Maybe? All righty, we have one discussion item. Discussion regarding adopting a code of conduct for the Board of Commissioners. We would take that into closed session, because right now it's a discussion item. Okay. So if you will read us into closed session. Oh, that's right, yeah.
It's okay, I'll make it
Yeah, I
real
forgot.
quick. I know it's a very long president's
No, I was
report.
gonna say, I'm gonna steal your thunder, sorry. Please, we have item 14.
Thank
President's
you,
report.
Mr. Chair. There's a lot of items here. I just want to highlight two items. One is, I made a concerted effort in the last few weeks to visit as many properties so staff can see leadership there. And my colleagues, Muriel and Diana, have also joined me, and Joanna have joined me out there to meet our staff. It's important for our staff to see us. So we've so far visited 15 properties. We have 55 more to go. We have the rest of the summer to keep on visiting, but we're getting great feedback. Some of the staff have told us this is the first time that leadership has seen them since 2019. And they want to just know that they're doing a good job. And it's been a great experience to see them. I think it's validated what I already knew, that we have a great team in place. We have a great teams out there at the property doing really hard work, interfacing with our residents, making sure the properties are clean, making sure that all the processes are done in compliance. And so I invite all of you, if you'd like to join in the next 55 properties. We do it early morning. I take tacos and donuts, and we have a great conversation. It's not formal. It's just a chance to say thank you for your hard work and to meet everyone. So that'll continue happening in the next few weeks. The second item, I know my thunder was stolen a bit, but I'll introduce.
I'm sorry, I just didn't know whether.
It's all good. You've met Joanna and you've met Miranda, but I'd also like to acknowledge our new Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer, Muriel, to the executive team as well. That's her official Opportunity Home title, but she's really considered the Dean of Administration. So if this was at a university, she would be the Dean. She's a reliable source, a reliable confidant. she's really the backbone of the organization, so we're really grateful, and she deserves this elevation because that's really the capacity in which she serves this organization. And then Diana, as well as our second dean, Dean of Finance, her institutional knowledge is unmatched. We rely on her to get us through these kind of choppy waters, and so we're also grateful for her continued guidance, and she's also deserves that elevated role as well. So with that said, we still have a chief of staff that we're trying to fill in. That chief of staff will drive initiatives and programs across the organization, and we're still in search of a chief operating officer. So once we have those two roles in place, and I'm hoping to have them in by next month, it'll be the first time that the EOT will be fully in place since last summer. And so it's really important that this organization that 60,000 households in the city rely on is fully fully in place on the executive level. So looking forward to that. And those are my two updates. And there's some other updates here, but I'll leave it to everyone to read at their leisure. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I just want to make a quick comment. Years ago, we created a group on digital inclusion, and I mean, this was years ago, maybe a decade ago. And I remember being so impressed that there was one person on that group who was not talking hypothetically, but was very specifically saying, I can get a project done, I can figure out a way to do this, I don't need a lot of money, I just need to get this. And that was Joanna. I mean, she literally came into every meeting with, I can get this done, I can figure out a way to make sure that people have access. And it was creative and very practical, and it was always elevating the needs of residents and never questioning, oh, why does someone need access? And now we all accept that, you know, digital inclusion is like a utility. But back then, there were people questioning it. And so I just want to acknowledge that, you know, for many, many years, she's just been a backbone of the awareness that it's not just, we're not the only ones who need information. There are a lot of folks who live in our housing who need better access. And so this is really exciting to see you in that.
Thank you, Commissioner. If I could just add, you know, Joanna has a seat at the executive table. So technology has a seat at the table, which means that residents are going to have access to their information on their palm of their hand. We're going to address our customer service concerns with technology. So there's a lot to look forward to. And Joanna is in the right position and the right time. So there's a lot to look forward to.
And telephone.
And she's a fellow Californian, is that?
No, telephones.
Oh, telephones as well. Okay.
Joanne, I also want to thank you. I'm watching the stream also. I always watch it on the computer here, and it is so much clearer now. And I noticed the new cameras that you put up, and we can actually see the speaker, see their face instead of the side of their head now. So I commend getting all of that done.
We didn't take a moment under the approval of the minutes for the special meeting, but those meetings were so impactful, and listening to a man and his wife talk about moving into a place where their children were safe. You just need to hear that once to really understand what our job is about. And I know everybody got up at a terrible hour on Saturday morning and had to do all that work just to get us from place to place, and it's really appreciated that you and your staffs took the time and got people there to help us understand what we're supposed to be doing up here. So thank you.
Other comments? Would another? Then you can listen.
Will there be a development corporation?
When we return? Because some of the items that are on that.
Well, then, the board will now go into closed session. Texas Government Code Section 551.072, 551.071, consult with the attorney and discuss the Snowden construction contract, new development opportunities, housing bond. Under Texas Government Code Sections 551.074 and 551.071, the board will consult with the attorney and discuss compensation review, president, CEO, and executive leadership team the acting president, CEO's performance goals, appraisal for the 24-25 year-end contract. Under Texas Government Code Section 551.074, the board will consult with its attorney regarding adopting a code of conduct for the Board of. Under Texas Government Code Section 551.072, 551.071, board will consult with its attorney about and discuss agenda items 6, 7. Time now is 2:33.
Okay, closed session.
Testing, testing.